Celery is a bit difficult because the germination can take 2 weeks sometimes, and it'll be very poor. All right, so for celery, I like to start a bunch of it because it's a bit picky on germination and growth time. You got to start very early in the season. It's definitely more of an advanced crop. I'm going to put it inside the little tunnel that I have in the garden. And if you have a tunnel, I'd recommend it goes in there. It just likes being watered by drip and not being rained on. It can be done in the field, for sure. It's picky on nutrients and what have you. You can start it in any tray you want, not too small, right? Because you don't want to pot it on. You want to just have it in a single tray when you plant. And I would advise getting pelleted because celery seed is incredibly small. So it's going to make it very difficult, right? So even like the pelleted is tiny. But at least it's white. You can see it so that you can get, one per. You just roll one in there. Right? You drop two, it's not the end of the world. You can always pinch it out, right? Do a little extra, right? Because the germination is just not so good. So you got to do a little bit extra to get it right. Okay, so once you get them in there, all right, just cover them. Okay, they're going to need warmth to germinate for that like 10 to 14 days until it happens. And then just keep them moist. And you may need to add a little fish juice because they're so long in the tray. So if they start to yellow or go white, definitely add fish juice. If you do it before that happens, you're just going to have much better, bigger starts. Because once they stop getting nutrients, they're going to slow down and stay small. That happens to me a lot. I get busy and, so we'll check on these in a few months. All right, so this is 10 to 12 weeks later. And you can see what I mean about that little yellowing when it starts getting a little older in the tray. But these are still good. These are ready to go out. And you could feed them and wait a little longer. One thing about celery is you don't want to plant them out too early. If you plant them out too early, frost will hurt them, kill them. They also may bolt if you put them out too early. That's not going to be good. Because these you can actually harvest all season long. You don't have to keep replanting them. And that's why I like to put a few out there and just keep harvesting stalks off of them. But these are ready to go and they look great. All right, so we have a celery that we planted. We seeded these trays. It's got to be 10 to 12 weeks ago. It takes a long time for celery, but we have some nice, beautiful starts. They look great. And the way I'm going to plant them is I'm going to just use a board. It's just another way to do it, especially if you have a small garden. And you'll still be able to plant pretty straight. All right, so all I'm doing is I'm just marking it out using the board. Right? And then when I want to do the next one, I just flip it over. And this will keep me nice and even. So the celery I'm planting at a 3x3, right? I may not be using a gritter, but it's still the same idea. It's about 10 inches, right? I said that's a pretty straight planting just with a board, right? So it's a great way to get started. Now celery takes a long time in the ground too, so that's why you can grow a lot of it and harvest it slowly. Very important that it kept even watering all the time. That's why it's such a great crop for the side of the tunnel, because there it's going to get drip regularly. It's not going to get overhead watering, which is it likes drip. All right, so here's the celery that we planted many weeks ago, and it's doing great, right? You're already harvesting it for for juicing, for cooking, for salads. It's not huge yet, and we have a few weeks until that happens. It's a good time to give it a little bit of fertilizer, make sure it stays weed free, and make sure it stays well watered. Celery likes a lot of water. You know when you have celery that's a little bitter or really stringy, that's usually because of a lack of water. So we'll come back in 3-4 weeks. We'll check on it when it's at full size and see how it's doing. Okay, so we have pretty nice celery. It's probably got another couple of weeks, but it's ready to harvest. It's beautiful green. There are no problems with it. But let me give you some problems that you might run into. You may run into spider mites, and they're actually really gross. They'll make like spider webs on here, and they're sometimes gray, red. We get red ones, and they're really tiny, like little aphids. But you'll know because they'll have like little webbing and stuff, which is pretty gross. The best thing to do about that is throw some ladybugs on there and then cover it with a sheet or row cover, whatever you got to keep them in there to eat them all. But to prevent it, it's about good soil. So we'll have beautiful celery in here, and then you'll have like just 10 feet away some celery that's not doing well because there's not enough nutrients. That's the one that's attacked. You know, it's something when I started farming I didn't believe, right? I was like, that doesn't make any sense, right? If I was an insect, I'd go after the best tasting one, but they actually go after the weaker one. In your garden, what you can do is just continue to harvest the outer leaves, right? You don't see this in the grocery store, but if you just wanted to have, you know, maybe 10 plants, you can just keep harvesting the celery around the edge and you can have celery all season long. How great is that? Some fertility problems with celery. If you're not having good celery, it could be down to boron or copper. Some of those really, the ones that you don't use in a lot of, in a big amount. So it may require a bit more intensive soil testing and stuff. But you can't hurt celery by adding too much compost and stuff. They really benefit from that because it is harder to grow, requires a bit more attention, but give it a shot. As I said, you don't need to use a lot of plants because you can just keep, it's like a cut and come again, and where you just take the leaves off like a chard or something.